The morning sun rose over New Busan Colony, like it had every day for the past 20 years. Han Sol Kim stood at the window of the orbital defense station, watching the golden light spread across the green fields below. The planet Kepler 442b had become home to over 2 million humans, and Han Sol felt proud every time he looked down at their work. "Another beautiful day," said Yoonji Park as she joined him at the window. She carried a cup of real coffee, grown in the colony's own farms. The smell reminded Han Sol of Earth, though he had not been there for 15 years. "The air readings are perfect again," Yoonji continued. She was the head scientist for the terraforming project. Her team had spent decades making this world safe for humans to breathe. Oxygen at 21%, just like home. Han Sol smiled. As the admiral in charge of the orbital station, he had watched the colony grow from a few thousand brave settlers to a thriving city. Now there were farms stretching to the horizon, schools full of children, and even a small university where Yoonji taught young scientists. Down on the planet's surface, Dongwoo Lee was preparing for his morning broadcast to Earth. As colony director, he sent reports back home every week, telling people about their progress. Today was special. It marked exactly 20 years since the first humans had landed on this world. "Good morning, Earth," Dongwoo said into the camera. Behind him, the main city square was already busy with people starting their day. "This is New Busan Colony reporting another successful week. Our population now stands at 2,300,000 souls. Our farms produced enough food this month to feed everyone with surplus to spare." He walked to the window, showing the camera the view outside. Children were walking to school, talking and laughing. Adults were heading to work in the factories and labs. Our children are growing up under alien stars, but they are growing up safe and happy. This is what humanity can achieve when we work together. In the research center, So Young Choi was checking the power systems. She was the chief engineer for the colony, and she took pride in keeping everything running smoothly. The fusion reactors hummed quietly in the basement, providing clean energy for the entire settlement. She had designed most of the systems herself. "Morning, So Young," called Jae Sung Nam as he passed by. He was the colony's head biologist, and he was carrying a sample case. "Want to see something amazing?" So Young followed him to his laboratory. Inside a clear container, strange crystal formations were growing. They looked like trees made of blue glass reaching toward the light. "The native life here is incredible," Jae Sung explained. "These crystal formations are actually living beings. They feed on sunlight and minerals from the soil. And the best part, they seem to help our crops grow better. It's like they want to be friends with our plants." So Young leaned closer to look. The crystals were beautiful, like art made by nature. "Do they think? Do they have minds?" "We don't know yet," Jae Sung said. "But they respond to our presence. When humans are nearby, they grow brighter. It's as if they like having us around." This was one of the things that made New Busan special. Most planets that humans settled were empty rocks that had to be completely changed to support life. But this world already had life of its own, and somehow that life welcomed the human settlers. In the colony school, Yu Jin Song was teaching her class about Earth history. The children listened with wide eyes as she told them about the blue oceans and white clouds of humanity's first home. "Will we ever see Earth?" asked little Minsu, who was only 8 years old. He had been born on New Busan and had never seen another world. "Maybe someday," Yu Jin said gently. "But this is your home too. You are the first generation of humans to grow up among the stars. That makes you very special." The children smiled at this. They loved their teacher, and they loved learning about the big universe beyond their world. Some of them wanted to be spaceship pilots when they grew up. Others wanted to be scientists like Dr. Park or engineers like Ms. Choi. At the medical center, Dr. Sungmin Ko was finishing his morning rounds. The hospital was quiet today with only a few patients recovering from minor injuries. It had been months since they had seen anything serious. Life on New Busan was safe and peaceful. Dr. Ko called his assistant. "The monthly health report is ready." Sungmin looked at the numbers with satisfaction. Life expectancy on the colony was actually higher than on Earth. The clean air, good food, and lack of pollution kept people healthy. Children born here were strong and smart. It was proof that humans could build something better among the stars. In the communication center, Mi Young-shin was monitoring signals from across the galaxy. As the chief communications officer, she kept New Busan connected to the rest of human space. Today, like most days, the channels were full of peaceful chatter. Trade ships reporting their positions, scientific expeditions sharing discoveries, and families sending messages between worlds. "Any interesting news today?" asked her assistant. "The usual," Mi-young replied. "New colonies starting up, old ones expanding. Humanity is spreading across the galaxy, one planet at a time, and all of it peaceful." This was the way humans had chosen to explore space. They did not conquer or fight. They found empty worlds, or worlds where they could live alongside existing life. They built homes, not empires. They made friends, not enemies. At the security office, Hyunwoo Park was reviewing the daily reports. As head of colony security, his job was mostly dealing with small problems. A disagreement between neighbors, someone drinking too much at the local bar, or the occasional accident at a construction site. It was boring work, and Hyunwoo was grateful for that. "Sir," said one of his officers, "we had another sighting of those unknown ships at the edge of the system." Hyunwoo frowned. For the past few weeks, long-range sensors had detected vessels near the outer planets. They appeared briefly, then vanished before any clear identification could be made. "Could be traders," Hyunwoo said, "or maybe scientists studying the gas giants. Have they responded to our signals?" "No, sir. They don't answer when we try to contact them." Hyunwoo made a note to mention it in his report to Admiral Kim. It was probably nothing, but it was his job to be careful. The galaxy was mostly peaceful, but there were still some dangerous species out there. Pirates and raiders who attacked defenseless ships or small settlements. But New Busan was not defenseless. Admiral Kim's orbital station had weapons and shields. They could protect the colony from any small threat. And if something bigger came along, Earth would send help. The colony had been built in a safe region of space, far from any known hostile forces. As the day went on, life in New Busan continued its peaceful rhythm. Farmers tended their crops in fields that stretched to the horizon. Factory workers built the machines and tools the colony needed. Teachers educated the next generation. Doctors cared for the sick and injured. Engineers kept the power flowing and the air clean. In the evening, families gathered for dinner. Parents told their children stories about Earth while eating vegetables grown in alien soil under alien stars. The children played games and did homework and dreamed about their futures. Dongwoo. Lee finished his broadcast to Earth with the same words he used every week. New Busan Colony remains humanity's shining example of what we can achieve through cooperation and determination. We continue to grow, to learn, and to build a better future for all. This is Director Lee signing off. High above the planet, Admiral Kim looked down at the lights of the colony beginning to twinkle in the gathering darkness. 2 million people living their lives in peace and safety. It was what humanity had always dreamed of when they first reached for the stars. He did not know that in the darkness beyond the outer planets, alien eyes were watching. He did not know that those strange ships had been studying the colony for weeks, learning its defenses and counting its people. He did not know that tomorrow would bring the end of everything they had built. For tonight, New Busan slept peacefully under alien stars, unaware that it would be their last night of innocence. The attack began at dawn without warning. Mi-young Shin was at her communication station, drinking her morning coffee and checking the overnight messages from Earth. The first sign of trouble was a strange reading on her long-range sensors. Ships were appearing at the edge of the system, dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. "That's odd," she muttered, adjusting her instruments. The signatures were unlike anything in her database. These were not human ships, and they were not from any of the peaceful alien species that traded with the colonies. She tried to contact them. "Unknown vessels, this is New Busan Colony. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." There was no response. The ships kept coming, more and more of them appearing every minute. Mi-young felt a cold fear growing in her stomach. She had never seen so many warships in one place. She opened a channel to Admiral Kim on the orbital station. "Sir, we have a situation. I'm reading at least 50 unknown vessels approaching the system. They're not responding to our signals." On the orbital defense station, Han Sol Kim was already moving toward the command center. His sensors had detected the incoming fleet moments after Mi-young's station had. The ships were moving fast, heading straight for the planet. "All stations, this is Admiral Kim," he broadcast on all frequencies. "We have unknown vessels approaching. This is not a drill. Raise shields and charge all weapons." But even as he gave the order, Han Sol knew it would not be enough. His station had been built to fight off pirates or small raiding parties. The fleet approaching them was massive, clearly military and obviously hostile. Down on the planet, Hyunwoo Park received the alert in his security office. He immediately activated the colony's emergency systems, sending warning signals to every building and every person. All residents, this is a code red emergency. His voice echoed from speakers throughout the colony. Unknown hostile forces are approaching. Move to designated shelters immediately. This is not a drill. But the shelters had been built for natural disasters like storms or earthquakes. They had never expected to face an alien invasion. In the school, Yoo-jin Song heard the alarm and quickly gathered her students. The children looked frightened and confused. They had never heard the emergency sirens before. Don't worry, she told them, trying to keep her voice calm. We're going to play a game. We need to go to the basement and stay very quiet. Can you do that for me? The children nodded, trusting their teacher completely. Yoo-jin led them down the stairs to the school's basement shelter, her heart pounding. Through the windows, she could see other people running toward their own shelters. At the medical center, Dr. Sungmin Ko was preparing for casualties. He did not know what was coming, but the emergency alert suggested there might be injured people soon. He ordered his staff to prepare all available beds and medical supplies. "Doctor," called his head nurse, "what do you think is happening?" "I don't know," Sungmin replied honestly. "But we need to be ready for anything." High above the planet, the alien fleet finished forming their attack formation. They were Vorthak warships, sleek and deadly, armed with plasma weapons that could turn entire cities to ash. Their commander, War Prime Gexthor, looked down at the peaceful human colony with cold satisfaction. The Vorthak were a warlike species that had built their empire through conquest and destruction. They saw other species as either useful slaves or dangerous enemies to be eliminated. Humans, with their rapid expansion across the galaxy, had been marked for destruction. "Begin the bombardment," Gexthor ordered. "Leave no structure standing. No human must survive." The first plasma bolt struck the planet's surface at exactly Oro 600 local time. They hit the power stations first, cutting electricity to most of the colony. Then they targeted the spaceport, destroying the handful of cargo ships that might have carried people to safety. So Young Choi was in the main power plant when the building exploded around her. The plasma beam punched through the roof like it was made of paper, turning the fusion reactors into balls of fire. So Young had just enough time to scream before the flames consumed her. Across the colony, more plasma bolts rained down from the sky. The communications center vanished in a flash of green fire. Mi-young Shin died at her station, still trying to send a distress signal to Earth. In the orbital station, Admiral Kim watched in horror as his home burned below. "Return fire," he ordered. "All weapons target the lead vessels." The station's weapons opened up, sending beams of energy toward the Vorthak fleet. A few shots hit their mark, damaging some of the smaller ships, but there were too many of them and their shields were too strong. "Sir," called his weapons officer, "they're targeting us." Hansol Kim had time to think about his wife, who had died 3 years ago, and about the colony he had sworn to protect. Then the Vorthak plasma cannons found his station, and Admiral Kim died trying to defend his people. On the planet's surface, the bombardment continued without mercy. The Vorthak ships moved in precise patterns, making sure every building was destroyed. They targeted hospitals, schools, homes, and farms with equal efficiency. In the school basement, Yoo-jin Song held her students close as the building shook and burned above them. "It's going to be okay," she whispered, even as she felt the heat growing stronger. "Everything is going to be okay." The roof collapsed in a shower of burning debris. Yoo-jin Song threw herself over the children, trying to protect them with her own body. The last thing she saw was little Min-soo's frightened face before the flames took them all. Dr. Sungmin Ko was treating a burn victim when the medical center took a direct hit. The plasma beam cut through the building like a sword, turning everything it touched to vapor. The doctor, his patients, and his staff died instantly. Their bodies turned to ash in seconds. Across the colony, the same scene played out again and again. Families huddled in basements as their homes burned above them. Workers died at their posts trying to help others escape. Parents died protecting children who would die moments later anyway. The crystal formations that Jae Sung-nam had studied so carefully began to glow brighter and brighter as the destruction spread. The alien life forms seemed to sense the pain and death happening around them. They pulsed with blue light, as if they were crying for their human friends. Jae Sung-nam himself died in his laboratory, still holding a sample of the crystals he had loved so much. The building collapsed around him, burying his research and his dreams under tons of burning rubble. In the security center, Hyunwoo Park coordinated the evacuation efforts until the very end. He guided civilians to shelters, organized rescue teams, and tried to maintain order as his world burned around him. "All units fall back to evacuation zone 7, he broadcast on his radio. "Civilian transport ships are standing by." But there were no transport ships left. The spaceport was gone, destroyed in the first minutes of the attack. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Hyunwoo Park died at his post, still trying to save people even when there was no hope left. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. When it was over, New Busan Colony was gone. Where once there had been a thriving city of 2 million people, now there was only burning rubble and ash. The farms were charred wasteland. The factories were twisted metal. The schools and homes and hospitals were nothing but craters in the ground. In all the destruction, only 17 people survived. They had been in a cargo ship at the edge of the spaceport when the attack began. The ship's pilot, Minho Jung, had managed to get them off the planet before the Vorthak noticed their escape. Minho looked back at his burning homeworld through the ship's rear window. He had lived on New Busan for 15 years. He had helped build many of the buildings that were now smoking ruins. His wife and children had been in the city when the attack started. They were gone now, along with everyone else he had ever cared about. "Where do we go?" asked one of the other survivors. A young woman named Hai Jin who worked in the university library. Minho set course for Earth. "We go home," he said quietly. "We tell them what happened here. We make sure they know." Behind them, the Vorthak fleet had landed on the planet's surface. Their soldiers moved through the ruins, making sure no humans had survived. They set up mining equipment to strip the planet of its resources. Within days, they would build their own base on the ashes of New Busan Colony. War Prime Gexthor stood in what had once been the colony's main square. The crystal formations were still there, their blue light now dim and fading. The Vorthak commander crushed one under his boot, grinding the beautiful alien life into powder. "Signal the hegemony," he told his communications officer. "The human nest has been destroyed. This sector is now ours." The Vorthak had done this before to other species. They would wipe out entire populations, then claim their worlds and resources. It was how they had built their empire, and they saw no reason to change their ways. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had let 17 humans escape. Those 17 survivors carried with them the story of what had happened to New Busan Colony. They carried the names and faces of 2 million innocent people who had been murdered for no reason except that they were human. And somewhere in the dark space between the stars, those 17 survivors flew toward Earth with news that would change everything. The cargo ship arrived at Earth 3 weeks after the massacre at New Busan Colony. Minho Jang had pushed the engines to their limit, stopping only once for fuel at a remote trading station. The 17 survivors had spent those weeks in shocked silence, trying to understand what had happened to their home. Earth's traffic control guided them to the main orbital station above the planet. When officials saw the condition of the ship, damaged hull, emergency repairs, and terrified passengers, they knew something terrible had occurred. President Subin Yoon was in her office when the call came. She had been president of the United Earth government for 6 years, and she had never received news like this before. "Madam President," said her aide, "we have survivors from New Busan Colony requesting immediate audience. They claim their entire world has been destroyed." Subin felt her blood turn cold. New Busan was one of humanity's most successful colonies, home to over 2 million people. Destroyed? What do you mean destroyed? They say alien forces attacked without warning. The colony is gone, Madam President. Everyone is dead except for these 17 survivors. 20 minutes later, Subin sat in the secure briefing room with her top advisors. Minho Jang stood before them, still wearing the same clothes he had worn during the escape. His hands shook as he activated the holographic display. "This is what we recorded during our escape," Minho said quietly. The room filled with images of death and fire. The officials watched in stunned silence as plasma beams turned buildings to ash, as ships burned in the spaceport, as the beautiful city of New Busan became a wasteland in minutes. Admiral of the fleet, Tae Hyun Lim leaned forward, his face grim. Can you identify the attackers? Minho nodded. We managed to scan some of their ships before we escaped. The computer identified them as Vorthak vessels, reptilian species from the Outer Rim. They have a reputation for aggression, but we never thought— They murdered everyone, interrupted Heijin, the librarian who had survived with Minho. Children, doctors, teachers, everyone. They didn't even try to communicate first. They just started killing. Defense Minister Insu Bey studied the tactical data. How many ships? At least 50 warships that we could count, Minho replied. Maybe more. They moved in perfect formation, like they had planned this for a long time. General Wu Jin Ryu, head of Earth's military forces, was already running calculations in his head. This was not a raid for resources or territory. This was systematic extermination. They wanted to kill every human on that planet. President Yoon felt sick to her stomach. In all of humanity's expansion into space, nothing like this had ever happened. There had been conflicts with pirates, territorial disputes with other species, even some small battles. But never genocide on this scale. What do we know about the Vorthak? She asked. Intelligence Director Kyung-ho Won pulled up files on his tablet. They control about 30 star systems in the Outer Rim. Population estimated at around 5 billion. They're known for aggressive expansion and treating other species as inferior. They've destroyed several smaller civilizations in the past century. And we just let them do it? Asked Admiral Lim. They were far from human space, Won replied. We had no diplomatic contact with them. Most of the galactic community avoids them entirely. Subin looked around the room at her advisors. These were good people, experienced leaders who had guided humanity through decades of peaceful expansion. But none of them had ever faced anything like this. Options? She asked. General Ryu spoke first. Military response is obvious. But the Vorthak have a significant fleet advantage in their home territory. A conventional attack would be costly and might not succeed. Diplomatic response? Suggested Foreign Minister Ah Young-shin. We could work through the Galactic Council, seek sanctions. The Galactic Council has no power over species like the Vorthak, Admiral Lim interrupted. They only work with civilizations that choose to follow galactic law. The Vorthak clearly don't care about such things. President Yoon was quiet for a long moment, studying the images of destruction on the display. 2 million innocent people dead for no reason except that they were human. Men, women, children, all murdered by aliens who saw them as nothing more than pests to be eliminated. There is a third option, said Defense Minister Bey quietly. Silent thunder. The room went completely silent. Silent thunder was humanity's greatest secret, known only to a handful of people in the highest levels of government. For 50 years, Earth had been preparing for exactly this kind of situation. General Ryu leaned back in his chair. Are you suggesting— I'm suggesting we use the tools we built for exactly this purpose, Bey replied. The Vorthak have made their intentions clear. They see humanity as a threat to be eliminated. We cannot allow that to stand. President Yoon turned to Admiral Lim. How long would it take to activate Silent Thunder? The shipyards are already operational, Lim said carefully. We could have the first battle groups ready within a month. Full deployment, 3 months, and the numbers? Admiral Lim looked around the room, making sure everyone present had the proper security clearance. 500,000 warships, Madam President, spread across 12 hidden shipyard systems. We've been building them for 5 decades just in case something like this ever happened. The other officials stared at him in shock. Even some of the president's top advisors had not known the full scope of Silent Thunder. They had known humanity was building defensive fleets, but nothing on this scale. 500,000 ships? Whispered Foreign Minister Shin. How did we keep this secret? The shipyards are fully automated, General Ryu explained. Built in empty systems far from civilian populations. The ships are constructed by robots and maintained by AI systems. Even most of our military doesn't know they exist. President Yoon stood and walked to the window, looking down at Earth's blue oceans. Humanity had always been a peaceful species, preferring to explore and build rather than fight and conquer. But they had also learned from history. Earth itself had been ravaged by wars before humans reached the stars. They had sworn never to be helpless again. The Vorthak think we are weak because we are peaceful, she said finally. They think they can murder our people without consequence. They are about to learn how wrong they are. She turned back to her advisors. Activate Silent Thunder. Full deployment. I want every available ship ready for combat operations. Madam President, said Foreign Minister Shin, this could be seen as an act of aggression by other galactic powers. A fleet of that size will be used to eliminate a genocidal threat, Subin replied firmly. Any species that objects to our response is welcome to explain why they think the murder of 2 million innocents should go unpunished. Admiral Lim was already activating his secure communication device. I'll contact Fleet Admiral Young Ho Kwan. He's been overseeing the Silent Thunder project for the past 10 years. Within hours, secret signals went out to 12 hidden star systems. Automated shipyards that had been quietly building warships for 50 years suddenly came alive with activity. Robot crews began final preparations on thousands of vessels. AI systems ran final checks on weapons and engines that had never been used in combat. Fleet Admiral Young Ho Kwan received his orders at the primary command facility in the Tau Ceti system. He had been waiting for this call his entire career, hoping it would never come but knowing that someday it might. All shipyard commanders, this is Admiral Kwan. He broadcast on the secret network. Operation Silent Thunder is now active. Begin final preparations immediately. We launch in 72 hours. In the hidden shipyards, massive dreadnoughts powered up their engines for the first time. Battlecruisers ran weapons tests. Destroyers and frigates checked their systems. For 50 years, humanity had been building the largest military force in the galaxy, and now it was time to use it. Back on Earth, President Yoon addressed the survivors from New Busan Colony. I want you to know that your sacrifice will not be forgotten, she told them. Your friends and families died as heroes, building humanity's future among the stars. We will make sure their deaths are not in vain. Min Ho Jiang looked up at her with tears in his eyes. What are you going to do? We are going to make sure this never happens again, Su Bin replied. We are going to show the galaxy that humanity protects its own, and we are going to make the Vorthak pay for what they have done. The news of New Busan's destruction spread quickly through human space. Other colonies heard about the massacre and demanded action. Earth's parliament voted unanimously to approve military action against the Vorthak hegemony. Speaker of Parliament Haiwan Cho addressed the emergency session. The Vorthak have declared war on humanity by their actions, she said. They have chosen to target innocent civilians, including children. They have shown that they see us not as fellow beings deserving of life, but as obstacles to be removed. We will respond with the full force of human civilization. The vote was unanimous, 847-0 in favor of total war against the Vorthak hegemony. In the secret shipyards, the final preparations were complete. 500,000 warships sat ready for battle, their crews made up of volunteers from across human space. These were not just soldiers, but ordinary people who had heard about New Busan and decided they could not stand by while their fellow humans were murdered. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Vorthak territory, like a storm made of metal and fire. 500,000 warships spread across multiple star systems, each one carrying the fury of a species that had finally been pushed too far. Fleet Admiral Young Ho Kwan stood on the bridge of Yunji's Vengeance and watched as his battle groups took position. For 3 months they had planned this moment. Now it was time to begin the hunt. All fleet commanders report status, Kwan ordered. One by one, the reports came in from across Vorthak space. Vice Admiral Su Jinhan commanded the northern battle groups, 50,000 ships positioned near the Vorthak military academies. Rear Admiral Katai Yu led the southern forces, another 50,000 vessels targeting their supply bases and shipyards. Northern battle groups ready. Sir, came Han's voice over the communication system. All ships report weapons charged and shields raised. Southern forces in position, reported Yu. We have visual confirmation of Vorthak installations. They appear to be unaware of our presence. Admiral Kwan allowed himself a small smile. The Vorthak had been so confident in their victory at New Busan that they had not even increased their border patrols. They thought humans were weak, that the destruction of one colony would frighten the rest into submission. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Begin Operation Righteous Storm, Kwan commanded. All units engage at will. Across dozens of star systems, human warships opened fire simultaneously. The Vorthak had never seen anything like it. Their sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing everywhere at once, as if the humans had somehow surrounded their entire empire in minutes. On the Vorthak homeworld, War Prime Gexthor was in his command center when the first reports arrived. His communications officer, a young Vorthak named Keltar, looked confused as he read the incoming messages. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from the Outer Rim colonies. They report human vessels attacking our mining stations." Gexthor frowned. "How many ships? A few raiders seeking revenge?" I don't know, sir. The reports don't make sense. Base Commander Vexilon says he counted over 1,000 human warships before his station went offline. "Impossible," Gexthor snarled. "Humans don't have that many ships in their entire fleet." But the reports kept coming. Mining stations destroyed, supply convoys annihilated, patrol ships vanishing without a trace. The humans were not sending small raiding parties for revenge. They were systematically dismantling the Vorthak military infrastructure. In the Kepler sector, Captain Ji-Hai Kim commanded the destroyer Minho's Hope. Her ship led a reconnaissance group of 50 vessels, mapping Vorthak positions and identifying targets for the main fleet. "Contact ahead," reported her sensor officer. "Vorthak Patrol Squadron, 6 ships. Signal the other destroyers," Ji-Hai ordered. "We take them all. No survivors." The human destroyers moved in perfect coordination, surrounding the Vorthak patrol before they could react. The alien ships tried to send a warning signal, but the humans jammed their communications. Within minutes, all 6 Vorthak vessels were debris floating in space. "Any escape pods?" Ji-Hai asked. "3, Captain." "Should we pick them up?" Ji thought about the children who had died in New Busan's schools, about the families burned alive in their homes. "No, they showed our people no mercy. They get none from us." Across the battle zone, similar scenes played out again and again. The Vorthak had built their empire on the idea that they were stronger than everyone else, that their willingness to kill innocents made them superior. Now they faced an enemy that was both stronger and angrier than they had ever imagined. Intelligence Officer Byung-ho Seo worked from his command ship in the center of the fleet, intercepting and decoding Vorthak communications. The alien messages painted a picture of growing panic and confusion. "Admiral," he reported to Quan, "I'm intercepting communications from their high command. They're trying to recall ships from their border regions, but we're hitting them faster than they can respond." "What about their civilian population?" Quan asked. "Panic in the major cities. Some are calling for surrender, others for increased resistance. Their leadership seems divided." This was exactly what the humans had planned. The Vorthak were a military empire, but they had grown comfortable with fighting weaker opponents. They had never faced an enemy that could hit them everywhere at once. Commodore Sung-woo Nam led the assault on the Vorthak's primary military academy on the planet Korthak Prime. His battle group of 10,000 ships surrounded the world, cutting off all escape routes. "Attention, Vorthak forces," Sung-woo broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Commodore Nam of the human fleet. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Any ship that attempts to flee will be destroyed." The response came quickly from the planet's surface. "This is Academy Commander Vorkesh. We do not surrender to inferior species. Come and take our world if you can." Sung-woo looked at the tactical display. The planet held over 1 million young Vorthak warriors in training, along with their instructors and support staff. In the old days, before New Busan, humans might have tried to minimize casualties to find a peaceful solution. Those days were over. "All ships, begin orbital bombardment," Sung-woo ordered. "Target military installations only, but make sure they understand the price of defiance." The human warships opened fire, their weapons striking with surgical precision. Weapon factories exploded, training facilities crumbled, and spaceports burned. But Sung-woo was careful to avoid the residential areas where the Academy families lived. Broadcasting on all channels, he announced, "This is for the children of New Busan who will never grow up. This is for the teachers who died protecting their students. This is for every innocent human life you stole." On the planet's surface, young Vorthak cadets watched their mighty academy burn. Many had been taught from birth that other species were weak, that the Vorthak were destined to rule the galaxy. Now they saw their world conquered by the very humans they had been told were inferior. Some of the younger cadets began to surrender, throwing down their weapons and walking out with their hands raised. The older ones, more set in their beliefs, continued to resist until the bombardment reduced their positions to rubble. In the Vorthak capital city of Zekthor, Prime Speaker Vorthak called an emergency session of the High Council. The reptilian leaders gathered in their great chamber, But instead of the confident speeches that usually filled these meetings, there was only fear and confusion. "How many ships do the humans have?" demanded Council Leader Vector. "Our intelligence was wrong," admitted Defense Minister Kreloth. "We estimated maybe 10,000 vessels in their entire space force. But our commanders report seeing hundreds of thousands of human ships." "That's impossible," roared another council member. "No species could hide a fleet that large." "And yet here we are," Vortex said quietly. "Our outer colonies are gone. Our military academies are under siege. Our supply lines are cut. The humans have done to us what we did to them, but on a scale we never imagined possible." Intelligence Director Thelkar presented his analysis. "Based on communication intercepts, we believe the humans have been secretly building this fleet for decades. They were prepared for exactly this situation." "Prepared for what?" "We only destroyed one of their colonies." "No," Vortex said, understanding beginning to dawn on him. "We revealed our intentions. We showed them that we see their entire species as an enemy to be eliminated. They are not responding to the destruction of New Busan. They are responding to the threat we represent to every human in the galaxy." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Vorthak had always believed that a show of overwhelming force would make other species submit. They had destroyed New Busan to send a message: challenge the Vorthak Empire and die. Instead, they had awakened something they did not understand. The humans were not fighting for revenge. They were fighting for survival, for the right to exist in a galaxy where the Vorthak wanted them extinct. War Prime Gexthor appeared on the Council's communication screen, his image transmitted from his flagship in the battle zone. His scales were pale with exhaustion and fear. "Prime Speaker," he reported, "we cannot stop them. Every time we mass our forces, they appear in our rear and cut us off from supply. Every time we try to defend a position, they bring more ships than we have ever seen. Our warriors are brave, but they have never faced anything like this." "What do you recommend?" Vorthak asked. Gexthor was quiet for a long moment. He had spent his entire life believing in Vorthak's superiority, in their right to conquer and destroy weaker species. Now he was watching his empire crumble under the assault of those same weak humans. "Surrender," he said finally. "Contact the humans and ask for terms, before they decide to do to our homeworld what we did to theirs." But even as he spoke, Gexthor knew it was probably too late. The humans had tried diplomacy, had tried peaceful coexistence. The Vorthak had answered with genocide. Now there was only war, and the humans were winning. Admiral Quan received the Vorthak surrender offer 12 hours later. Prime Speaker Vorthak himself appeared on the communication screen, offering to negotiate an end to hostilities. "Admiral Quan," Vorthak said, "I speak for the Vorthak High Council. We are prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict. Perhaps..." 6 months after the massacre at New Busan Colony, Fleet Admiral Young-Ho Kwan stood on the bridge of Yunji's Vengeance and looked down at the Vorthak homeworld. The planet called Vorthak Prime hung before him like a green and brown jewel, home to 3 billion reptilian beings who had built their empire on the bones of peaceful civilizations. The Vorthak fleet was gone. Their military academies were ruins. Their supply lines were cut, their colonies abandoned, their government in complete collapse. The mighty empire that had terrorized this region of space for centuries had been reduced to a single world in just 6 months. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "all battle groups are in position. We have complete orbital control." "The planet is defenseless," Quan nodded slowly. Around the planet, 500,000 human warships waited for his orders. With a single word, he could turn Vorthak Prime into another lifeless rock, matching what the aliens had done to New Busan. The weapons were charged, the targeting computers locked on. Vengeance was within his grasp, but that was not why humanity had come to the stars. "Open a channel to the planetary surface," Quan ordered. "All frequencies." His image appeared on every screen across Vorthak Prime, in every city and every home, where the alien population cowered in fear. They had heard what happened to their military, had seen their empire crumble before the human assault. Now they waited to learn their fate. "I am Fleet Admiral Young-Ho Kwan of the United Earth Forces," he began, his voice calm and steady. 6 months ago, your forces attacked and destroyed New Busan Colony. 2,300,000 innocent humans died in that attack. Men, women, and children burned alive while your warriors celebrated. In the cities below, millions of Vorthak listened in terrified silence. Many of them had supported the attack on New Busan, believing it would show the galaxy that their species was not to be challenged. Now they faced the consequences of that decision. Your military is destroyed, Quan continued. Your government has surrendered. Your empire is finished. By all rights of war, I could order this fleet to reduce your world to ash, just as you did to our colony. An eye for an eye, death for death. Prime Speaker Vorthek, trapped in his capital city bunker, watched the broadcast with growing dread. He had already lost everything. His fleet, his colonies, his power. Now it seemed he would lose his entire species as well. But that is not who we are, Admiral Quan said, and his words sent a shock through every Vorthak listening. Humanity does not wage war against civilians. We do not murder children. We do not commit genocide, even against those who have committed genocide against us. In the human fleet, Captain Ji-hai Kim listened to her admiral's words from the bridge of Minho's Hope. Many of her crew had lost family at New Busan. They wanted blood, wanted to see the Vorthak homeworld burn as their colony had burned. But they also knew that Quan was right. Becoming like their enemies would dishonor the memory of those they had lost. Therefore, Quan announced, the Terran Protectorate will assume control of all former Vorthak territory. Your military will be disbanded permanently. Your government will be dissolved. Your people will be relocated to agricultural worlds where you will live under human supervision. The terms were harsh but fair. The Vorthak would survive, but they would never again threaten another species. Their warlike culture would be transformed. Their children raised to understand that strength came from creation, not destruction. Ambassador Hee Young Park took control of the occupation from her command ship. She had been chosen for this role because of her experience in diplomatic affairs, but also because she had lost her sister in the New Busan attack. If she could forgive, anyone could. All Vorthak military personnel will report to designated collection points, she broadcast to the planet. Any attempt to hide weapons or military equipment will be considered an act of rebellion. Civilian populations will remain in their homes until relocation can be arranged. The process took months, but it was carried out with surprising efficiency. The Vorthak people, broken by their defeat, offered little resistance. Many seemed almost relieved that the war was over, that they would not be exterminated as they had expected. Young Vorthak like Keltar, who had served as a communication officer, found themselves in human re-education centers. Instead of the brutal punishment they expected, they received education about other species, about the value of peaceful coexistence, about building rather than destroying. Your people were taught that strength comes from conquest, explained Dr. Yeon-Soo Cho, one of the human teachers. But true strength comes from creation, from building something that makes life better for everyone. Some of the older Vorthak resisted these ideas too, set in their ways to change. But the younger ones, especially those who had seen the futility of their empire's destruction, began to understand. They learned about the colonies humanity had built, about the peaceful trade networks, about species working together instead of fighting. Meanwhile, Captain Yeon-Soo Cho led the construction of the New Busan Memorial Station at the site of the destroyed colony. The massive space station would serve as both a monument to the dead and a permanent base to ensure such a tragedy never happened again. The crystal formations are growing. Back, reported Commander Junho Lee as he supervised the environmental restoration. The alien life forms that had once welcomed human settlers were slowly recovering from the devastation. It's like they remember our people were here. The memorial station was designed to protect and nurture these crystal beings. Humanity had learned that their expansion into space was not just about building homes for humans, but about becoming guardians of all life they encountered. In the galactic community, news of humanity's victory spread quickly. Other species watched in amazement as the humans dismantled the Vorthak Empire, but showed mercy to its people. It was unprecedented. No species had ever shown such restraint after suffering such losses. Galactic Council Representative Ah Young-shin addressed the assembly of alien diplomats on the neutral world of Nexus Station. Humanity does not seek to become the new tyrants of this galaxy, she announced. But we will no longer stand by while innocents suffer. Any species that chooses genocide as a tool of policy will face the consequences. The message was clear, and it resonated throughout known space. The peaceful humans who had seemed like easy targets were revealed to possess the largest military force in the galaxy. But more importantly, they had shown that this force would be used only to protect, never to conquer. President Su Bin-yoon, now in the final year of her term, addressed the Earth Assembly one last time on the anniversary of New Busan's destruction. Behind her, a holographic display showed the memorial station, its lights shining among the stars like a beacon of hope. "A year ago, we lost over 2 million of our people to senseless violence," she said. "Today we have ensured that no other species will suffer the same fate. We have shown the galaxy that humanity stands ready to defend not just our own people, but all peaceful civilizations." The transformation was complete. Humanity had evolved from innocent explorers to reluctant guardians. They kept their massive fleet but hoped never to use it again. The 500,000 warships remained scattered across human space, a silent reminder that peace required strength to defend it. Engineer Min Ho-jung, the survivor who had carried news of the massacre to Earth, stood in the New Busan Memorial Station and looked out at the restored world below. The cities were gone, but new growth was beginning. The crystal formations sparkled in the sunlight, their blue glow a testament to life's ability to recover and endure. "They would be proud," said a voice behind him. He turned to see Admiral Kwan, who had come to the memorial for the anniversary ceremony. "Sir, your friends, your family, everyone who died here. They would be proud of what we built from their sacrifice. Not just the fleet, not just the victory over the Vorthak, but this." He gestured toward the viewport. "A galaxy where peaceful people can live without fear." Minho nodded, tears in his eyes. "I just wish they could see it." "They can," Kwan said quietly. "Every time we choose mercy over vengeance, every time we protect the innocent instead of seeking conquest, they see it. Their memory lives in every decision we make to be better than our enemies." Throughout human space, the anniversary was marked with quiet ceremonies. In schools, children learned about the price of freedom and the responsibility that came with strength. In the military academies, new officers swore oaths to protect all peaceful life, not just human life. The Vorthak, now scattered across agricultural worlds, also remembered the anniversary. But for them, it marked not defeat but transformation. Their children were learning new ways, growing up in a galaxy where strength meant helping others rather than destroying them. Some, like the young former officer Keltar, had embraced these new ideas completely. He now worked alongside human engineers, helping to build the very infrastructure that would prevent future wars. "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" he asked his human supervisor, Dr. Cho. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting," she replied. "It's about choosing to build something better from the ruins of what was destroyed." "You're already doing that." The galaxy had changed. Where once the strong preyed upon the weak, now there was a force that stood ready to defend peace itself.